Hello everyone, today is 13th of September, now it's about 9 o'clock in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for a day in which I'll share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. If there is enough news, most likely this evening from 7 to 8-9 o'clock I'll publish a second update. Although let's start with the current developments and first of all, short summary of the situation on Ukrainian battlefield. There are no reports about any crucial changes on Kherson or Zaporozhye sectors of the front line. On South Donetsk sector, Russian forces continue to further improvement of their positions and after establishing control over the Vadiana, Russian troops are further advancing in this area towards Bogoyavlenka. Also, Russian troops conducting artillery long-range strikes basically on concentration of the Kiev regime forces in Ugledar itself, which is at least partially can be said is encircled now. Also, Russian troops conducting artillery strikes, long-range strikes on points of concentrations and the strongholds of the Kiev regime on the northern flank of South Donetsk sector, in areas of Katerinovka, Antonovka, Elizavetovka, and I guess before end of this month, all these settlements, by the way, northern western side of Konstantinovka that I just mentioned, and also Ilinka, Parus, Ramonovka, possibly Vysyoly, all these settlements will be under Russian control. I expect to see here similar developments as we see on Pokrovsk sector, when defense lines of Kiev regime collapsed one after another, like a domino. So most likely something similar will take place in this area, because Kiev regime's formations are exhausted in this direction, like any other direction, and they hardly are capable of withstanding further increase of the Russian pressure. When it comes to Pokrovsk sector itself, we have significant update here. Russian armed forces, as I predicted, by the way, many times earlier in earlier updates, Russian armed forces established full control over this artillery pocket between Georgievka, Maximilianovka and Krasnogorovka, by the way. So this is Krasnogorovka, and these fields a little while ago was controlled by Kiev regime, but as a result of Russian offensive operation, Russian local scale offensive operations, this area entirely under Russian control, although it is highly likely that in certain places, this is huge territory obviously, and at certain places there may be some pockets of resistance, some formations of the Kiev regime may be trapped, and they will have opportunity to lay down arms and surrender, or else, basically. Also, during these offensive operations, reports are that the Russian armed forces established control over the Ostraya settlement, which is located, as you can see, on the western side of Krasnogorovka and the northern side of Georgievka and Maximilianovka. Also, by the way, Russian armed forces further improving positions in Selidovo area, in Ukrainsk area. Reports are that Ukrainsk already is under full Russian control. Russian troops definitely are in Ukrainsk. We see videos of presence of Russian troops in this area, but maybe it is a little early to say that the entire settlement is controlled by the Russian forces. Let's wait, maybe today or tomorrow we will receive some additional reports on that. And Russian troops further improving their positions in Mirnograd, Pokrovsk direction, although it is becoming obvious right now that Russian forces are concentrating additional troops in this area, establishing new lines of communications, and basically are preparing ground for a major offensive in direction of this agglomeration of the Pokrovsk, Mirnograd. This is big towns, relatively big towns, and obviously because Kiev regime in attempt to stabilize situation in Pokrovsk direction send towards these settlements a significant number of forces Of course, Russian side will take time to and a cautious approach when it comes to offensive operation in these two settlements. Russian troops are basically right on outskirts of these cities, literally on outskirts of Mirnograd and just a couple of kilometers away from Pokrovsk. Also, by the way, Russian troops further advancing in Toretsk city, and according to this map, for example, Russian troops are already in the central part of Toretsk, although probably many of you noticed that pace of Russian offensive in Pokrovsk direction had slowed down a little bit, maybe because after establishing full control over the New York, Russian, not just New York by the way, but after establishing full control over the New York, also Pivnichne, also Druzhba, Russian troops, possibly some of them were redirected towards maybe Pokrovsk direction or maybe Kursk salient area, or maybe this line of contact was stabilized due to additional reinforcements that Kiev regime sent towards Toretsk sector. But I mean, it is noticeable that a line of contact has stabilized more or less in this area. Although initiative is in Russian hands, obviously, and it's up to Russian forces to decide when next level of escalation will take place on the line of contact. No crucial changes on the Seversk direction. Russian forces further improving their positions and conducting long-range strikes on points of concentration of the Kiev regime forces. Same can be said about Kupiansk sector of the front line, although Russian troops are significantly more active on Kupiansk sector, and preparation to conduct offensive on Kupiansk itself is underway. No crucial changes on the northern part of Kharkov region in Volchansk-Liptsy area. Russian troops conducting long-range strikes on points of concentration of the Kiev regime forces. Although I did not see any reports about ground offensive operations that was conducted by any side in this area. And when it comes to Kursk salient, as I reported by the way yesterday, Russian armed forces liberated 10 settlements. We know names of those settlements on the western flank of this Pokrovsk salient. And yesterday, on one of the sources I see reported, another 4 settlements were liberated by Russian forces. So collapse. We are observing total collapse of Kiev regime's forces on the western flank of this salient in attempt to help the invading forces. Kiev regime tried to cross the border in 2 other areas and conduct their offensive towards Obuchovka settlement, also towards Medvezhir. At least armored vehicles of Kiev regime were destroyed in this direction, but at this point we don't really have any indicators that these attempts of Kiev regime to divert attention of the Russian forces from western flank of this Kursk salient. I mean, at this point there is no reports that will suggest that Kiev regime succeed in that. Russian troops are destroying these invading forces on the western side of Kursk salient, and Russian troops continue further advancing inside this salient itself. Question is now how long it will take before Russian troops will cut invading forces into several pieces, encircle them. Some military channels are reporting that a significant number of Kiev regime forces already are encircled in Kursk salient, although of course I'm not there and it is difficult to me to know for sure what is going on, but it is obvious that Russian armed forces conducting large-scale counteroffensive in Kursk salient direction. I expect similar operation to take place in Suja area also in a relatively short time. But as I said, initiative is in Russian hands all along the front line, and there are no way Kiev regime's forces gonna be able to regain initiative ever. Not just anytime soon, but ever. That being said, let's talk about some other news also. And dear friends, I'm gonna check constantly, update, and once it reaches 30 minutes, 35 minutes, I'm gonna cut it. And whatever number of news I will have left, those news will go into second update. This way, I mean, I'll be able to make relatively short updates, like 30-35 minutes, and probably it will be more convenient for majority of our community, although I know that many members like longer updates also. So TASS news agency is reporting that Blinken, head of US State Department, made a statement that that US will reconsider or US will correct its aid to Kyiv regime, and this statement was and US will correct its approach to topic of deployment of US weapon systems by Kyiv regime in one or another direction. This statement comes straight after a recent visit to Kyiv by Blinken and his British counterpart, when many experts worldwide were expecting statements to be made about lifting all the restrictions on the strikes deep inside Russian territory by long-range weapon systems of NATO countries. But this kind of statement has not happened, and now we are receiving this news that still topic is open, and according to Blinken, Washington plans to correct its approach on this matter also. Although meanwhile Times is reporting, by the way, according to TASS news agency, that Biden may be against direct strikes deep inside the Russian territory with US weapon systems, ATACMS, for example, although he would not be against if UK and France will conduct strikes deep inside the Russian territory with the Storm Shadow and Scalp EG missiles. And I said UK and France because we all understand, by the way, that even if Western ruling elites will say it's a Kyiv regime that conducts these strikes, it was obvious from very beginning that these long-range weapon systems cannot be used by Kyiv regime's military personnel. They don't have expertise on that, and they don't have means to use these weapon systems, especially when it comes to satellite navigation, when it comes to targeting data, right? It's all done by NATO personnel. So, according to Times, Biden or whoever is a decision maker in Biden's administration, according to Times once again, possibly will be against ATACMS to be used to strike deep inside Russia, but they will have no issue if British Storm Shadow and Scalp EG missiles will be used for that purposes, cruise missiles. And I guess this statement, this article in Times, by the way, also is a part of this media operation to prepare basically ground and also society, public in the West for what is about to come, which is a next level of escalation, obviously. And probably Washington also wants to see how Moscow will react on long-range strikes with Storm Shadow and Scalp EGs, so that then, Washington wants to play safe, kind of. Now they will observe how Moscow will react, and they will probably make final decision. Although, as I said in previous updates, many experts here in Russia, many public figures, politicians are stating that their decision to strike deep inside Russian territory was already made by Washington, London, and Paris. And what we are observing now, all these talks about this topic, is just a media operation, formalization of the decision that already been made, which well may be the truth, by the way. And meanwhile, Russian president reported about, commented on this issue, on this topic. And well, we have this report from RT, for example, that Russian President Putin issues a new warning to NATO, warning again, removing restrictions on Ukraine's use of Western weapons would directly involve the US and its allies in a conflict with Russia and would be met with an appropriate response. Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned. The West has sent Ukraine long-range missiles such as Storm Shadow and ATACMS, which Kiev has so far used against Crimea and Donbass. In the past several days, however, the US and UK have suggested they might allow these weapons to be used to strike targets deeper into internationally recognized Russian territory. We are not talking about allowing or prohibiting the Kiev regime from striking Russian territory, Putin said on Thursday. It is doing so already with unmanned aerial vehicles and other means. Exactly, by the way, that's what I was talking about for so long, isn't it? That this all these talks about allowing or not allowing strikes deep inside Russian territory is BS, because these strikes already are happening, including with drones and also other means, by the way, because HIMARS multi-launch rocket systems already was used by Kiev regime, formerly Kiev regime, in reality by US, to strike deep inside Russia in the Kursk region, right? And President basically acknowledged this, right? He did not mention HIMARS, but Russian Defense Ministry is reporting that at least 7 HIMARS multi-launch rocket systems were destroyed in the Sumy region that was used for strikes into Kursk region, right? Then quote again, by the way, President's response on the let's continue. Ukraine lacks the capability to use Western long-range systems, Putin added, noting that targeting for such strikes requires intelligence from NATO satellites, while firing solutions can only be entered by NATO military personnel. Firing solutions or targeting data, by the way. And targeting data, of course, depends on intelligence, right? Including satellite intelligence. And you need to have also satellite navigation, right? For these precise, long-range, precise weapon systems. So, if eventually we will see strikes deep inside Russian territory with these long-range, precise weapon systems, this will mean that NATO countries, the US, European countries are fighting against Russia. This was said by Putin, and I listened to his statements in Russian, by the way. So that's exactly what he said. So if this decision is made, it will mean nothing less than the direct participation of the NATO countries, the US and European countries in the conflict in Ukraine, the Russian president said. Their direct participation, of course, significantly changes their very essence, the very nature of the conflict. With that in mind, Putin added, Russia will make their appropriate decisions based on the threats that we are facing. So this is a response of the Russian president. He clearly highlights that all these talks are just media op. In reality, it's not about allowing Kiev regime or not allowing to conduct long-range strikes. It's absolutely not about that, because Kiev regime on its own cannot do any long-range or precise strikes with the Western long-range weapon systems. Kiev regime just has no capabilities for that. So if such strikes appear, that means that US and the European NATO member states are directly involved in the conflict, because it's them that are targeting Russian territory, right? And according to Russian president, this will make some significant changes in the essence of conflict, and Russia will respond appropriately. He did not specify what he meant by Russian response, but I guess we will see. We will see. Meanwhile, by the way, running mate of the Trump in the presidential election made some comments about Ukrainian crisis. He revealed basically, at least partially, Trump's plan how to end this conflict. I saw a little fragment of the interview. And I shared that video, I believe, on my Telegram channel. You can check it out, by the way. And it is a somewhat interesting approach, but same time non-starter, in my opinion. Although let's go through this news first. So Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump has a concrete proposal to end the Russia-Ukraine conflict. His running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, has claimed Trump has repeatedly said that he would stop the fighting in 24 hours if elected. Most recently, at first day's debate with their Vice President Kamala Harris, the Democrats candidate to succeed President Joe Biden. To end the war, you need somebody that first of all peoples are terrified of. Vance told former U.S. Navy SEAL and CIA contractor Sean Rain in a podcast interview, you need to be worried that if Donald Trump or God forbid Kamala Harris says something, that they actually mean it. But you believe it with Donald Trump, you don't believe that with Kamala Harris. That's the deterrence. Asked about what a Trump peace proposal would look like, once Vance outlined the scenario, he considered it probable the current line of contact would become a demilitarized zone, heavily fortified so that Russia does not invade again. He told Ryan, Ukraine will get to keep its independence and sovereignty, but Russia gets a guarantee of neutrality from Ukraine. It does not join NATO or other similar institutions. Vance said, meanwhile, Ukraine's reconstruction would have to be funded primarily by Germany and EU countries, whom Vance accused of underwriting Kiev's war efforts. I think that's ultimately what this looks like, he said, because they are scared of him, Trump, in Russia. Holy moly, man. We are scared of Trump. Are you serious, man? Are you serious, man? Do you think we are scared of anybody or anything? You don't know us, man. I mean, you so don't know us, man. But anyways, let's continue. They are worried about him in Europe because he actually means what he says. Well, I don't know about European states, by the way, but if you think here in Russia we are scared of anything, by the way, anything, you are so mistaken, though. You don't know nothing about us and about our mentality. J.D. Vance is wrong on that 100%, and he is wrong, and Trump is wrong on this so-called peace plan because it's a non-starter, and I will explain why. But first of all, on the topic of Russians are scared to anybody, or Trump, by the way. First of all, we don't give a damn about any U.S. politician, period, right? Secondly, and this is very important, by the way, majority of us are fatalists. And if J.D. Vance knows what fatalist means, we believe in fate. Majority of us believes in fate. Majority of us are Orthodox Christians. And simultaneously we have some beliefs, by the way. This is part of our nature. I believe this is a case in most of the former Soviet Union. We believe in fate, right? So what has to happen will happen. That's what I think personally, and there are vast majority here. What has to happen will happen no matter what. So therefore, if I have to die tomorrow, I'll die tomorrow, and there is no need to worry about it, right? So therefore, if necessary, I can overcome fear of death, right? And that's how, by the way, because of this mentality, this belief in fate, our ancestors were capable of destroying all the enemies that we had, right? And this mentality sits in us also. And that's why we don't fucking afraid of nobody, man. Nobody. And nothing. If Trump wants to bring third world war and nuclear exchange, you know what? Bring it on, for God's sake, man. fuck it. You want to die? Bring it on. Let's die together then. That's what will be our response, by the way. If you think you're gonna scare us, you are so mistaken, man. You know? And you remember what Putin said, by the way, on the topic of possible nuclear exchange? He says, they will die, we will go to heaven. That said it all, isn't it? So these jet events, man, I mean, be more serious, for God's sake, man. If you don't know nothing about us, just don't say nothing. Because they scare Trump. Who the hell is Trump, for God's sake, man? Who? Holy moly, man. So that was a big mistake on part of Vance to say that Russians are afraid of anything, man, or anybody. Don't do that kind of nonsense, man. It makes you look positively. And secondly, when it comes to this plan of freezing the conflict on the current line of contact, this is also a non-starter, by the way, because according to Russian constitution, Zaporozhye, Kherson, DPR and LPR are part of Russia. And even if there will be agreement between Moscow and the Western ruling class on ending hostility, these regions have to be liberated 100%. 100%. And right now, this goal has not been achieved. Nothing to be said about Kharkov region, Nikolaev region, and Odessa region, by the way, Dnipropetrovsk region. Right? Sumy and Chernigov region. So therefore, that's why I'm saying, by the way, that once this conflict will end, most likely there will be no more Ukraine on a political map because it will be divided. And the Western Ukraine will be controlled by NATO, rest of the Ukraine by Russia, with a slight possibility that Kiev and surrounding areas will maintain quasi-statehood on the political map. Although if it was up to me, I would never agree on that also, because Kiev is a historical Russian city, obviously, and there has to come back to Mother Russia. It is what it is. It's a Russian city and has to be in Russia, part of Russia. Period. But yet again, a Russian president has huge support of public here, and if whenever some agreements will be reached, people will support that. But there might be some disappointment in the public that, let's say, if Kiev will not join Russia. But when it comes to all their historical Russian territories, by the way, from Kharkov to Odessa for sure, Odessa region, I mean, these territories has to be liberated, by the way. Not just new regions, Zaporozhye, Kherson regions, DPR, LPR, but also from Kharkov to Odessa, Kharkov region, Dnipropetrovsk region, Nikolaev region, Odessa region, at least. And I will add Sumy and Chernigov regions also. This is at least, by the way. And after that, we might talk. But yet again, most likely what will happen is that Western Ukraine will become under control of NATO. Rest of the Ukraine under control of Moscow, and eventually will join Russia. Although, as I said, man, there is a slight chance. There is a slight chance that Kiev and surrounding areas might maintain quasi-statehood and stay on the political map as a landlocked quasi-state under the name of Ukraine. Theoretically, that might happen. And whenever I say this, by the way, I always remember this map that was deployed by, this one, that was used by former Russian president. Not him necessarily, maybe, but once, relatively recently, former Russian president Dmitry Medvedev was giving a speech on a Forum of Knowledge Association, I believe it was, and while he was talking about some geopolitical stuff, behind him on a huge screen, this map appeared. And on this map, you can clearly see how former Soviet Republic under the name of Ukraine is divided, right? So Western Ukraine is a part of Poland, Hungary, and Romania on this map. The rest of the Ukraine is part of Russia, although Kiev and surrounding areas are still on this map maintained as a landlocked state. So that's why I always keep in mind that who knows, theoretically it is possible that that's exactly what is going to happen, and unfortunately Kiev and surrounding areas will stay on the political map as a quasi-state. But if it was up to me, I will never agree on that also. Kiev is a Russian city, historical Russian city, and has to come back to Mother Russia, by the way. That's my personal take on that. So yes, all these initiatives from JD, Vance and Trump, this is nonsense. Just nonsense, by the way. And Vance should be a bit careful when he's talking about Russia and Russians, because he has no understanding of us. He knows nothing about us, right? We scared of Trump. For God's sake, who the hell are you to talk about who we are and what we are scared of not? Just, shut your fucking mouth, bitch. Взгляд newspaper is reporting that, Finland, by the way, Finland is officially stating that no drones were launched from Finnish territory to target Russia's Murmansk region. And this was stated, by the way, on a level of general staff of defense forces of Finland. So as you know, by the way, during the previous 2 days, and I reported about it, there was attempts to strike Murmansk region with the drones. One of the military airfields, I believe, which is housing Russian strategic bombers. And rumors start straight away circulating on Russian segment of internet and probably elsewhere also that these drones were moving towards this airfield from Norway direction, which not necessarily means that those drones were launched from Norway. Flight path could be like that to simulate if strike done from Norway. Although simultaneously there were rumors that Finland was involved in this strike and these drones were launched from Finnish territory. I'm a bit skeptical of these rumors, even though I have no respect for leadership of Norway or Finland. I have no respect for puppets of the Washington and London in general. But still, I don't think they are that crazy that they will allow Kyiv regime to launch strike drones to target Russia. So therefore, my understanding is that probably some Kyiv regime's DRGs crossed the border, went towards, they went deep inside Russian territory, and they launched drones from within. So, in my opinion, Russian security forces have to focus more on operations of these DRGs of the Kyiv regime on Russian soil, because yet again, until full-scale war starts between Russia and NATO, and let's hope it will never happen, and I'm quite sure there will be no full-scale war between Russia and NATO. There is no way Finland or Norway gonna allow Kyiv regime or any other terrorist organization to launch attacks on Russia. At least I want to believe in that. I want to believe that at least some people in leadership of Finland and Norway have some sense of responsibility for safety of their fellow citizens, because if something happens, Russia may respond, and Russia may respond not like Russia is responding to Ukraine. One should keep in mind that response to NATO member states will be utterly different, right? And most likely with nuclear weapons. So it is what it is. But yes, Finnish defense ministry, Finnish general staff basically officially stated that they have nothing to do with this strikes. And let me check how long is this update. It is 34 minutes already, by the way, so therefore I will just share with you this information, and the rest of the news are going to be in a second update. So RT is reporting that Ukrainian military keeps Russian civilians in the concentration camps. So Ukrainian troops in Russia's Kursk region have rounded up local civilians and placed them in something like concentration camp. RIA Novosti reported on Thursday, citing Russian Foreign Ministry report. Well, is anybody surprised to hear this statement from Russian Foreign Ministry or this report from Russian media that Kiev regime's forces, these Nazis, fascists, and terrorists are creating some sort of concentration camps in temporarily occupied territory of the Kursk salient? I'm not surprised at all, and I hope Russian troops will liberate entire salient as fast as possible, and hopefully nobody from invaders will manage to flee this territory alive. I hope all the terrorists, all the mass murderers and Nazis that invaded the Russian territory will be neutralized with no mercy, all of them. And I'm gonna end this update on this news. By the way, as you can see, there are quite a number of other reports in Russian media, but in attempt to keep updates relatively short, I will report about this other news in a second update. And who knows, maybe I will have like 3 updates a day. I don't know, let's see, but I want to keep updates short, by the way. 30, 35, up to 40 minutes probably will be okay. So yes, this is it for now. I hope you will find this update informative and interesting, and if so, please click that like button, leave some commentary just about anything, and share information about my channel in real life or on the internet, on any of the platforms that you are actively using. This is the only way we can at least try and influence algorithm to reach wider audience. And finally, if you like my work, if you like my channels, if you think me and my channels deserve to exist in this field of news and political commentary, please consider to support with small donations through PayPal or by subscribing to my Patreon page and Boosty page. All the links are on this video description box and in the pinned comment. And dear friends, on my Patreon and Boosty, today I will publish a new episode of Behind the Scenes. This is videos about my day-to-day life, basically, short videos of that. And as far as reactions are showing, comments, many members of our community find these videos interesting, and as time goes by, I will make sure that those new episodes will be more and more professionally done, let's say this way. After all, we just moved to Moscow and we don't really had too much time to concentrate, fully focused on work, but we are resolving issues one by one, and we are getting closer to the position when we will have that opportunity to focus as much as possible on this project. So this is it for now. Have a great day and take care.